Today, we are diving deep into one of the most exciting shifts in automation, building your very own AI agents. We're going to be using a super powerful visual tool called n8n, and I'm going to give you a complete step-by-step guide to bring your first intelligent agent to life.
Seriously, just think about that for a second. What if you could build a digital teammate? An AI that doesn't just, answer a question, but actually takes action on your behalf. This is not science fiction anymore. When you combine the reasoning power of AI with the execution power of tools like n8n, you fundamentally change what's possible. And today, we're handing you the blueprint.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll nail down what an AI agent even is, and how it's different from a simple chatbot. Then, we'll get into our main tool, n8n, and look at the core parts of an agent. After that, the fun part. We'll build our first agent together. And finally, I'll share some pro tips to take your automations to the next level.
Okay, let's get right into it. You hear the term AI agent thrown around everywhere, right? But what actually makes something an agent instead of just another AI tool? Well, the real difference is all about moving from just conversation to actual action. Here's the core idea. An AI agent is an autonomous system. And the two key words you really need to focus on are autonomous and actions. It doesn't just talk, it perceives its environment, like say a new email arriving. It makes a decision based on that, and then it acts on that decision to get something done. This comparison really gets to the heart of it. A chatbot is reactive. You give it a prompt, it gives you a response. It kind of just follows a script. But an AI agent is proactive. It can reason, it can plan, and this is the huge part, it can use external tools. It can check your calendar, pull data from a database, or send an email. And crucially, it has memory, so it can handle a complex, multi-step task without forgetting what you told it 2 minutes ago.
And this is where it gets really practical and cool. Think of a personal assistant that doesn't just remind you about a meeting, but actually reads an email thread and schedules it for you. Or a research assistant that doesn't just find articles, but actually pulls out the key findings and compares them. These are the kinds of complex, multi-step jobs that are now completely automatable.
So, the big question is, how do we build one? Let's get to our toolkit. Our platform of choice for this is n8n, which is basically a visual workshop for creating these super powerful automations.
So n8n is an open-source automation platform. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like digital Legos. It gives you this visual canvas, and each node is like a block that does one specific thing. You just connect these nodes together to build a workflow, letting you visually link up pretty much any app or API you can think of.
And the most important point here is that it's accessible. You don't have to take my word for it. This quote highlights that n8's whole visual approach means you don't need to be a coding genius to get started. It basically democratizes agent creation, putting this insane power into the hands of creators, marketers, and operators, not just developers.
All right, let's pop the hood and look at the anatomy. To build anything effectively, you've got to understand the fundamental building blocks. So think of this next part like looking at the blueprint before we start construction.
Everything, and I mean everything, starts with a trigger. This is the starting gun for your workflow. It's that one event that kicks the entire process into motion. This could be something simple, like a schedule, run every Monday at 9 a.m. to summarize my inbox. Or it could be event-driven, firing the very instant a new email lands or someone fills out a form on your website.
Next up is the brain, the large language model, or LLM. Inside n8n, this is its own dedicated node that you connect to models like GPT-4 or Gemini. This is the part that does all the heavy lifting, the reasoning, the understanding, the decision-making. It looks at the goal and figures out the best way to get there.
An agent with amnesia isn't very smart, which is why memory is so critical. This component gives your agent context. It lets it remember the last few messages in a conversation, so it can have a real dialogue instead of starting from scratch every single time. It's the difference between a simple tool and a true assistant.
And now for the magic. Tools are what give your agent its skills, the ability to actually interact with the world. A tool can be a simple calculator, a web search, or access to an API like your Google Calendar. The AI brain decides which tool it needs at any given moment to get the job done. This is what lets the agent actually do things.
Of course, real-world tasks aren't always a straight line. That's where logic nodes come in. Simple nodes, like an if branch, let the agent make choices. For example, if this email is urgent, then send a Slack alert. If it's not, just add it to my to-do list. This is how we build in more nuanced, intelligent behavior.
And finally, we have the output. After all the thinking and planning and tool using, this is the final action. This is the node that actually sends the email, or updates the spreadsheet, or posts the message in Slack, completing the task it was assigned.
Okay, theory is great, but let's make this real. We are now going to build a simple but incredibly useful agent, an AI-powered email responder that can actually check your calendar before it replies.
Building an agent really follows a clear, logical process. You start with a super specific goal. You set up your trigger, connect the AI brain, give it the right tools, define the output, and then you test and refine it. Let's see what that looks like in practice for our email responder.
This table shows you exactly how those components we just talked about connect. So, our trigger, you can see in the first row, is the Gmail node set to fire whenever a new message comes in. That message gets fed into the AI agent, which has a system prompt telling it what to do. You're a helpful email assistant. For a tool, we give it the Google Calendar API so it can check if you're free. The memory node keeps track of the conversation, and finally, the output node uses Gmail again, but this time to send the reply. It's a beautiful, logical flow.
Okay, building that first workflow is a massive step. Seriously, congratulations. But once you have the basics down, a few key principles can take your agents from just, functional to truly great. Let's start with what not to do so you can skip the frustration. The number one mistake is trying to build something way too complex right away. Start with one simple, clear goal. Second, please don't forget the memory node. A forgetful agent is a frustrating agent. Also, watch out for API rate limits for your tools. You don't want to get locked out. And here's a pro tip. While the generic AI agent node is great, if you know you're only using OpenAI, its specific node can often give you better performance.
And this is where it gets really, really powerful. You can create multi-agent systems, like a whole team of specialized agents that collaborate on tasks. For long-term memory that lasts forever, you can hook into a vector database like Quadrant. And for those really critical tasks, you can build in a human-in-the-loop step, where the agent actually has to ask for your permission before it sends an invoice or deletes a file.
Look, the key takeaway here is this. Building sophisticated, autonomous AI agents is not just for big tech companies with giant budgets anymore. Visual tools like n8n have made it accessible, they've made it powerful, and they put you right on the cutting edge of what's possible with automation. We've covered the what, the why, and the how. You now have the blueprint to build a digital assistant that can think, act, and take real, tedious work right off your plate. So the only question left is, what task will your first agent conquer?